The Ascendant Project by Brian Smyers. I am starting this blog because I am 46 years old and we are divided more than we have ever been. I write this on June 4th, 2020, and there are protests in the streets across this nation. We are exiting the first wave of the coronavirus pandemic, and many people still feel raw from Decision 2016. I have left Facebook behind. I shut it down a couple weeks ago, just before the alleged murder of George Floyd. I knew a storm was coming. President Trump thrives on division and chaos. Through organizations like Black Lives Matter and Athletes on TV, African American community has been asking for help in tearing down qualified immunity as an institution for protection of police officers. Many of my conservative friends were considering not watching the NFL because they felt players kneeling during the national anthem were dishonoring the flag in this nation. Over the last couple of months, I've found myself getting very angry, yelling at the TV, the computer, or even myself in the shower when I run through possible conversations with my friends regarding politics. As the pandemic droned on, I found myself becoming more and more sedentary. My daily step would drop from 9,000 steps to 2,000. Then the George Floyd unrest occurred. At first, I was following the news as much as possible, but I felt overwhelmed and my anger continued to grow. So I tried to tune out by playing through Skyrim for the umpteenth time. This only lessened my activity and I found myself swinging between rage and depression. In my head, I had yelling matches over politics with my friends who I am not just happy are in my life, but I need in my life. My thoughts would become so loud that they became verbal. And my wife and daughter would hear my mutterings. I know this isn't healthy. I know I haven't been healthy for a while. I don't think most of us are. Not with each other, not with ourselves. Through all of this, I yearned for a place where I could host political opinions and let them be valued. Also, I was determined that today was the day I would take care of myself. So at 7 a.m., I went for a walk. So it begins. Before the pandemic started, I had read Love Your Enemies by Arthur C. Brooks. It is about how to have constructive political conversations and when to demonstrate righteous anger. I also joined a group called Better Angels, who are now known as Braver Angels. They administer workshops to train people on how to have a political conversation without getting them or yourself angry. My takeaways from Love Your Enemies and Better Angels are the following. 1. Listening is far more important than talking. 2. When you are arguing facts and statistics, you are no longer talking about the issue. 3. Once an insult is perceived, all trust is lost in the conversation. 4. A political statement is a conclusion brought about a lifetime of experience. And 5. A friend lost means less influence you have in the world. Using these principles, I have found the best political discussions are rooted in stories. I have an African American friend who will not travel to North Carolina because in the 1980s he was pulled over for a minor traffic infraction. The traffic stop lasted 90 minutes because they were running a background check after background check. And it is his impression that they presumed he was guilty because he is black and was from out of state. The fact that his family was in the vehicle did not matter. And I am certain his experiences gives passion to his thoughts on George Floyd, Freddie Gray, and others. His experience personally connects him to the news, and it is our stories that drive us and our politic. Our biases have long been used to divide us, easily so, as it is their primary nature to preserve or enhance one's position in society and interests. Perhaps by learning each other's stories, we can turn bias on its head and use bias to unite us. Definition of the Ascendant. Number 1, the point of the ecliptic or degree of the zodiac that rises above the eastern horizon at any moment. 2, a state or position of dominant power or importance. And 3, a lineal or collateral relative in the ascending line. Those definitions come from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. Political power needs to come from the grassroots. When the electorate is formed and understands each other's stories, then our leaders can make good policy. When we view each other as the enemy, then only the interests of a few are cultivated, grown, and governed. And despite what they say, those few are not really Democrats, Republicans, liberals, or conservatives. They are parasites that use us and our conflicts as pawns for their own gain. To put another way, our division breeds their corruption. It is my intention with this blog to get to know and share the stories behind the political positions of everyday people. In time, I will be looking for contributors. Eventually, I want these contributors to write a political essay and then be interviewed. The interview will be more about the personal stories about how the contributor came to those conclusions as opposed to the fact-checking of the essay. But any necessary fact-checking will fall to me. The more we understand each other's stories, the better we can work together and learn to forgive each other, one heart at a time. As we build a better society, you, the reader, can rise and become the Ascendant.
Okay. All right. So we were just talking,
Yes.
about the Ascendant Project and how we're trying to get through the details of what this is supposed to be. So whether the author would be interviewed by a friend, and you mentioned you'd like it to be someone from across the aisle,
Right.
and we don't really accomplish that at all between the two of us because we're very like-minded.
Yes, but we're also small and two people in this project, and I have reached out to Braver Angels. I have not heard back from them.
Okay.
Yet. I sent them a Facebook message for the Central Maryland chapter. Hopefully, we'll hear back soon.
Well, that's fine. Well, so, but okay. So let me push back a little bit because I felt like we were making our first recording a moment ago, and I don't know that I pushed back quite as much as I would, but we're friends. You can take it, right? Yeah. So
sure.
Well, I'm not. I feel like I get to push back a little bit since you called me out in your article about how you could still beat me in tennis
with only one eye.
Right.
Yes.
Asshole.
Yes.
So I think the thing I do want to the thing that kind of stuck out in my head as I read the article, as I listened to the audio, actually was how I feel like we're all kind of in this together, and there are a lot of people right now who are patting themselves on the back or applauding or cheering it on and talking about how much this all of the recent events are going to make America great again, and and to be honest, they might.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not gonna poo-poo that.
No.
Not necessarily.
I mean, as much as I was pissed off in Trump's first term, there are a few things that I thought, he accomplished.
Sure.
The Abraham Accords, simplifying the tax code, certain things like that. Yeah. I mean, those are good things. Every squirrel finds a nut every now and then.
Right. This is the thing I say to to other people too. It's like, yeah, I mean, of
Every
course,
blind squirrel
the
finds a nut.
the number of things he's putting out there,
Yeah.
it's almost impossible that one of them I'm not going to, that I'm going to have to disagree with every single one of them.
Yeah.
Like, there've been a couple, but um, but I was, interestingly though, like I was having this conversation with somebody earlier today about waste in the federal government and versus private industry, and how I felt like, quite honestly, I think there's much more waste in private industry than there is in government at all.
Oh yeah,
Like
totally.
this
And
obsession.
more so now, since he's freaking, the first thing he did was fire the inspector generals.
Right. Absolutely. Like, these are the people who are literally hired to
keep fraud
the
from
waste,
happening.
right? Keep the waste and everything.
So that's the first thing he does, and
Yeah.
fires them, and then brings in Doge.
Yeah.
With no oversight.
Right.
And now they're going through NASA because there's no conflict of interest at all
for somebody who owns a rocket
company. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, who knows? That is honestly, to me, the biggest thing, that the biggest issue I have with the way things are going right now.
Yeah. And my thing is also notice how the phrase "drain the swamp" was not uttered this campaign.
Yeah, true.
And look at his cabinet, and they're all billionaires.
Right.
It's like, okay, so your plan on draining the swamp is to eliminate the middlemen.
Right. We're going to drain the swamp and just put it in Washington, just right in the
We're just going to put all the alligators,
yes, yeah,
in power.
Yeah.
Forget the middlemen. You don't get any fish in the swamp anymore.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess the direction I'm kind of going, and like going back to your article, is like we're all just kind of like figuring this out. There's definitely a lot going on to that some would perceive as a call to action.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I think as Americans, there's that call to action should always be there, and it's not a who's in power or which party owns what house, what branch.
Well, I mean, and this might be a topic for a whole new article. But I remember Al Sharpton talking about the Black Lives Matter protests, and saying the biggest problem with the Black Lives Matter protests is, unlike the Civil Rights Movement, which had, RFK and JFK and dealing with and Johnson, these protests did not have a counterpart in power.
Okay.
So they were loose, and they were organic, which was great. But in the end, you got to have a tentacle into the system to help move the system, reform the system, and that didn't really happen with Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
So it was not anywhere near as effective as it could be.
The counter to that, I'll kind of play the other side here a little bit for a second. So the counter to that,
I said Sharpton, not Franken, right?
You did say Sharpton.
Good.
Is what does Black Lives Matter is a kind of like just as a phrase. I understand it's also an organization, but just as a call to action, it doesn't really like, it expresses a lot, but also really not very much. Like, it doesn't tell you what to do. So, and for me, I kind of consider myself, among the earliest millennials, having grown up through the 80s and then in the 90s. And I remember, like, specifically there was this, The More You Know. Do you remember The More You Know?
Yes.
It was like
NBC.
On NBC, yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So, and
it was like the rainbow peacock.
Yes, right.
Yeah, the rainbow into the peacock, or
right.
something like that, or vice versa.
Exactly. So there was one that stuck out to me which was I don't remember the like plot, but at the end of it, it says, seeing somebody's race is not the problem, something like that, but acting like it matters is the problem. And so Black Lives Matter kind of like takes the stance that, and there are some people too who would they say all lives matter. Well, of course, all people, all lives matter. But
Yes.
But Black Lives Matter kind of like puts the attention as though it's just about that, and really like this.
It's the DEI argument.
Sure, yeah, and I think, so it is almost like divisive, like naturally divisive,
Yeah,
in a sense, because it acts like race matters.
and maybe this is where we differ. Race does matter.
Okay,
and the reason why is because the colorblindness, I have found, allows people to become blind to racial actions, racist actions. They don't view it as racist. It's, even though it might be systemic. Even though it might be systemic racism, they're blind to that too because they don't see race. So therefore, you're being racist for calling this out, and I completely disagree with that. I have a friend of mine, and I mentioned this actually in the first article, 5 years ago. He was pulled over for an hour and a half, in North Carolina. His family was in the car.
Mm-hmm.
This was in the 1980s,
Yeah.
and if you don't think that, like, for instance, Mr. Trump, who was raised in a privileged household during segregation, during his formative years, if that does not influence his policies today, no. I mean, it's like, you can't, like, quotas. I mean, I know quotas have pretty much all gone away, which was basically another form of DEI. But the whole reason is because systemically and institutionally, minorities were completely disadvantaged. And so and I really feel that one of the biggest problems is if you help one of your kids, is that discriminating against your other kids?
Right, sure.
They say it is.
But
And I say not. I say you can help a minority without hurting the majority. I really think you can. And they don't see it that way. They feel disadvantaged by helping somebody out, who, yes, may even have, slightly less qualifications. You're still going to have a big freaking pool to choose from. You can still choose the most qualified of that racial or gender or whatever category you need. But, so if a company wants a DEI hire in that to help out, everybody else is going to feel disadvantaged. And they're just trying to,
advantage everyone.
Yeah, I mean, pay for some generational crimes. I mean, it's not reparations.
Right.
Everybody's against reparations. Well, they're also against making change in society so things are equal, and so they're just arguing the status quo, and that's usually what conservatives do. Is they're always against the status quo. Complete rambling here, complete tangent, but a great example of that, I think, is Don't Ask, Don't Tell. When it first came out, conservatives were vehemently against it. Now they're vehemently for it because they don't want people serving openly. They're defending the status quo, and it's strange. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Well, you mentioned two things, and I'll tell you like how I reconcile those two things.
Yeah.
Right. The idea that you can, like, um,
I've never met a racist who thinks they are racist.
oh, sure, absolutely, yeah.
You know,
That's
never, not
right. Yeah,
once.
right,
I'm not racist, but
right,
yeah. Well, then everything before the word "but."
right,
Throw in the trash.
right. Well, the thing that how I reconcile these, I disagree that that race matters, or that we should. The what I'll caveat it by saying, well, I'm gonna get to my caveat in a second, but you mentioned how don't ask, don't tell, and which was to prohibit gays from serving openly in the military.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that being such a travesty, I don't think I do think that people should be allowed to be who they are and be that openly. I think diversity should be celebrated uh, without it including any kind of like tangible or actual difference in how we treat people.
Yeah.
And of course, I've like been trying to reconcile these different things now my whole life, so I feel a little bit bad for kind of like putting you on the spot. But uh, but I think you might agree with that sentiment that um, we want to. I think in this country, our diversity is our real strength.
I completely agree with that, and I do think it should be celebrated, but it needs to also be recognized. And this is something that I feel like the other side does not recognize. Black history is American history.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You need to learn about Benjamin Banneker.
Mm-hmm.
You need to learn about Martin Luther King. You need to learn about the Underground Railroad. You need to learn about these people, and because they are Americans and they are worthy of being learned about.
Absolutely, yeah.
And and that's not necessarily color blindness, because the only reason why they're in there is because people have made a conscious effort to include them, and they're trying. And this is about exclusion. And are Americans supposed to be represented by all types of Americans, or is it really going to be exclusionary in terms of what we learn and who we hire and everything else?
Right.
Because the other thing that really I'm worried about is the Civil Rights Act and protected classes, because that's next. It's getting rid of protected classes. Okay, well, I just turned 50. I just got my AARP card. Should I really not get another job after this one? I mean, that's a protected class.
Yeah.
I mean, it's... Yeah, I mean... There's a reason why these protections are there, and there's a reason why DEI is there, and it's to encourage. It isn't to discourage. And I really think that people have confused being a little bit loss of privilege for being discriminated against, and it's not the case whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah.
So kind of like talking more about the Ascendant Project, and then and the article in particular, like, are those the things that you're that you feel like you're protecting against? Because we've also talked about how it's every time as an American, it's every president, it's every Congress. Like, there's no letting your guard down.
Yeah.
But like this time for you, is that really what stirs you to action? Like, are those policies?
What stirs me for action actually is lost relationships. I think that's really what it comes down to for me. That's probably what's driving this. Is I mean, I don't have any family members that I'm completely estranged from, but I have family members where we avoid topics. Mm-hmm. And I would love for them to understand, to really understand where I'm coming from. And if they grew up with me, they should know where I'm coming from. Mm-hmm. But they don't. Because we've all gone into our own echo chambers. And we, far too much, Republicans are evil. Far too much. Democrats are evil. Liberals are socialists. No, they aren't. They're just trying to regulate some capitalism. They're capitalists. They just want some checks on it.
Right.
And it's all the name calling just kind of dehumanizes, and we need to remember that we are human, and the only reason, and it's easy to do that on your side.
Oh yeah.
But you have to remember to do that on the other side.
Yeah. Well, so you talked about your echo chamber. Like I know where you grew up. You grew up in a pretty right-leaning community.
Yeah.
How did you escape that?
Honestly, it took being poor.
Yes.
It really did. I mean, I grew up in a nice middle-class family.
Poverty
goes a long way.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
You see society different from the bottom up than you do from the middle.
Definitely.
And it's I went to college, down at Georgia Southern, and studied sociology. Came back home. I love sociology. I loved learning things on the aggregate scale. I love statistics. And so I just really get a kick out of it. And, but I didn't get the degree for a lot of personal reasons. And, basically my personal life got in the way of my professional one, my family life, I should say. I'm not going to go on my sob story because it's just, whatever.
Sure.
It's 30 years ago. I'm over it. But nonetheless, so I wound up working retail till I was 30.
Huh.
And, and I worked in the bookstore and people in bookstores are more liberal. And, they're basically librarians in training.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And, so, I mean, during that time, and learning how to live and pay rent on minimum wage, which you can't do now.
No, definitely not.
I was paying for a basement apartment for $400 a month. This was like 1997. That same place would probably go for at least $900 for a basement apartment now. Mm-hmm. And the inflation rate is, the real inflation rate and the regular inflation rate don't really match when it comes to that. But nonetheless, those hardships, let me realize, we really need to go into this with compassion, because everybody has their own story. Like even in college, I didn't ask for my dad for additional money, so I didn't pay my electric bill, and I slept in an apartment with no electricity in it.
That's rough.
That's just the way it was. And
but I'll tell you, like hearing this story, I definitely see the connection now, at least between you and your person who works for an organization that receives money from USAID.
Yeah,
like it's much more personal in the sense that
totally.
You're almost trying to protect them from your own past, in a sense. Like you don't want them to
I
face that kind of struggle.
Correct.
Yeah. Maybe I'm totally misinterpreting. You feel free to elaborate.
I think that definitely keys into it, and that's a great case of how your personal story affects your politics.
Mm-hmm. So growing up, did you feel like you were right leaning? Growing up, yeah.
Dude, I distributed pamphlets in people's mailboxes for George Herbert Walker Bush campaign.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I was definitely conservative.
Yeah.
Um, in the end, I mean, it's another thing that drove me left actually was scripture, believe it or not. New Testament scripture, especially Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 25. Um, where it tells you that how you treat the least of your brethren. The least of these. Your neighbor, and when it comes down to who Christ considers your neighbor in the Bible, it talks about the immigrant. Where's Christianity now on that?
Right.
It's definitely not in Matthew 25. So, but they're putting nationalism over Christianity, and they're doing it with a cross.
Yeah.
Another thing that drove me away from the right, and Christianity in general. After 9/11, one of the churches that I had went to draped a flag from the cross, and as if the country was crucified after 9/11, and I just felt.
I'm flabbergasted. Nobody
I
can
never
see
went back. I never went
facial expressions, but yeah.
And there are plenty of churches I fixed copiers at, where the support your troops ribbon was bigger than the cross, and I think that was like there's a Brethren church out near Middletown or something like that. It was that way. There was a Baptist church out near Boonesboro, if I remember right, that had flags and stars on their background on their webpage. And I'm like, dude, no, this should be about God, not country, and you can't mix the two.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, and if you think you can, well, did the North win the Civil War because they prayed harder?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, there's a reason why there's a Southern Baptist Church. They split over slavery. So I don't know. I mean, Christianity needs to be more about action and not prayer, and it needs to be more about how you treat people than it is your culture. And yeah, so I left the church, and it's hard for me to call myself Christian when that is such a politically charged term now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. I know. I know religion is a big part of your identity, at least internally. You don't. I'll say for a long time, having known you now many years, for a long time, I didn't really see you that way.
Yeah.
But
I
certainly
kind of feel like I'm
inwardly-
an agnostic with a Christian core. It's the upbringing. I still pray from time to time, but I feel the biggest difference between me and Christians is I have a complete understanding and acceptance that my idea of God is not who God is. And I understand that. Mm-hmm. And the people who don't make that connection, they're the ones who are trying to impose their Christianity on everyone else.
So we've talked about
that's like way off topic, but
it isn't right, like because the name, like the nature of the day is you just don't know from one day to the next what it's going to bring.
No,
and this is honestly the first time I've felt so much uncertainty.
Yeah,
in just certainly in the political sphere, but also just in life in general. Like, I know a lot of people, a lot of people just by virtue of living in Maryland, where a large portion of the workforce is, related in some way to the federal government.
Oh yeah, we were recession proof.
Right. Yeah.
And the way you fight recessions is with government spending.
Yeah.
That's Maryland, baby.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, there's just a ton of uncertainty, and yeah, we've gone through a lot of different topics, but and I hope anybody contributing to the Ascendant Project will one day touch on those more.
Yeah. Yeah, and in fact, I mean, there's probably a lot of 3 or 4 articles that could be just written from this discussion.
Yeah.
So
I hope they are. I hope they will be. I think that's, honestly, I think less engagement, less, like pulling back from people, especially people that you disagree with, is really the wrong way to go, right? I mean, it's those relationships are harder. They're a lot more challenging.
New ideas do not come from people you agree with.
Right. But new ideas do not come from people you agree with. But you also said, and I get like with family, you're like bound by things other than just your politics, and
right.
So you don't necessarily want to ruin those relationships. But like, at least as far as like friendships that you may have lost, how do you like can you reconcile those two things, like your desire to be to listen and try to grow in your own politics, your own personal philosophy, so to speak?
I have only unfriended 2 people on Facebook over politics.
So okay. I mean, I assume then that it sounds like at least there are a lot more people that you still keep in contact with.
Yes.
What was it about those 2 relationships?
Personal insults.
Okay.
That's
definitely
you throw a personal insult at me for my political view, you're gone.
Yeah.
It's all politics is personal, so it's already hard enough to talk about it as it is.
Right.
So the moment that you just use a freaking cheap trope, what you doing here, dude?
Right.
You're just trying to troll, trying to get a rise out of me. Yeah, I don't have time for that.
Right.
So
there's a country to country to run.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah. Well, hopefully, I think I have a much better appreciation for your perspective now, actually, especially with this second recording.
Which we're what 916 seconds. Holy crap!
Well, but sometimes it takes that. I mean, you'll probably edit this down, but sometimes it takes that long.
Maybe.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, this website's evolving. I mean, it could very easily be the whole podcast type thing. That's what this could kind of turn into. The interview section is like more of a podcast.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but I definitely look forward to hearing more perspectives. Certainly from you, but also I'd love to hear more from. I think you mentioned. I think we started out the conversation just now with talking about how you'd like it to be more of a someone being interviewed by somebody with an opposing view.
With an opposing view, yeah. Trying to get to know their story.
Yeah.
Not necessarily about the issue, but trying to get to know the story about how they arrived there.
Yeah.
Because life experience, the paths you walk is how you come to your politics. It's your politics. Your present politics was a destination at one point.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a second thing where your politics affects you. So if the articles could be about how your path, they can ask you about the path, and they can ask you about how your issue affects you as well. So there's 2 different ways we can go through this.
Right.
Right. But I mean, I definitely want the articles to be written from a perspective where that your idea on it was kind of a destination. And then you can go back and forth in the interview.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay.
Between story and destination.
Yeah.
But I don't want the policy necessarily debated. I'd rather.
No. Yeah. And I
get to know the story and the understanding.
Yeah.
Because you're always going to disagree about the issue. This is about understanding.
Sure. But I think, but it's about understanding. But well, let's talk for a second about what the ascendant means. I'll be honest, as a person, I did not, I don't follow astrology. I knew
That's just one
very
definition.
very little about it. But I mean, well, and yeah, it relates to that. But it's also, as you go ahead, you explain it. What is the
Well, I mean, yeah, in astrology, I mean, the ascendant would an ascendant would be the sign that's like rising over the horizon, I guess when you're born or
right.
whatnot. Or at a particular time for a star chart or whatever. I don't really subscribe to astrology. I love birth charts. I kind of like having the idea of some sort of cosmic social security number. I think that's kind of cool.
Sure.
But I, as far as Mercury being in retrograde means I'm going to have a freaking bad day.
Right.
No, I'm not going to look on the calendar and like, oh, okay, I'm going to have a bad day that day, because then you will have a bad day that day because you're concentrating on it being a bad day.
Right.
So,
but there's still like the analogy there between the ascendant and the rising star, and this path of personal growth.
Right. So this is more about the star coming up over the horizon, or anything. You're coming up from the ground, and you're ascending. So you're getting higher metaphorically, to reaching higher planes of consciousness and understanding of each other. I mean, I don't want to go freaking new age, but it's like harmony. But it takes work. It doesn't just happen.
Sure.
And so this is about doing the work so we can rise,
right,
and become a better society than we are.
Yeah. Well, so then just kind of set the terms, so to speak, of this project, right? You said a moment ago about how you didn't want it to debate the policy.
Yeah.
And I understand you don't want it to necessarily be about the policy, but for there to be growth has to be conflict to some extent, right?
Yes
Do you agree
and no.
with that or no? Okay.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Conflict on one hand, compromise on the other. There's two different ways, but the compromise part of it, I don't think that really happens until you understand the other person, because then you really understand what they need out of something. You give somebody what they need, they'll give away what they want. So, I really think that there's a degree of growth that this country can occur, that this country needs in order to achieve that, in order to achieve compromise. Right now, it's just way too easy to hate AOC or love AOC, or love Trump or hate Trump.
There's a small group of people who voted for both.
There is.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Those are the Sanders thing. AOC was she was the one of the Congress people who came out of the Bernie Sanders brand new Congress movement.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a great documentary on her campaign, by the way. You should watch.
I'm kind of curious. The more I learn about her, the more impressed I am.
Yeah.
I'm honestly still not certain she's found the leader within. Like, she leads. She's
getting there.
But
she's getting there.
Yeah.
And I actually sent her. I haven't gotten a response yet because I'm out of district, so I doubt I will. But I did send her a response, a email to her via Facebook. So I guess a message, if you will. Now's your time to lead. This is this is the moment you're trained for.
Yep.
So, but yeah, just to encourage her. I don't think we do enough encouragement of our leaders. I mean, and if you're conservative listening to this, I think you should also follow the same advice. Write your leaders, tell them they're doing a good job if they're doing a good job. Encourage them if they're going through a hard time. Reach out. I think they're very human. They need strength just like we do.
Yeah.
And too often, I mean, Hillary Clinton basically became a cartoon in the media on the left and on the right, and that's a human being there, and that totally got lost.
Yeah.
Donald Trump's a human being. That totally gets lost. It's harder for me to see as humanity, but I'm also from the left, so I'm going to have a handicap. So,
So are you hoping? Okay, I mean, this is another interesting, like avenue to take. Like, are you hoping to kind of peek through that door then in that, through
I'd love to
through this project? Yeah.
I mean, especially since, I was raised in conservative Christian household and had conservative Christian friends like all through high school, and I was one of them. And there's always the part of me who wants to reconnect with the idealism of being young, and that's where my idealism had lay.
Yeah.
I don't see that idealism of me being young then matching up with today's Republican Party. But, those times won't come again. It's the fallacy of make America great again. Those times don't come again.
Right. Nostalgia is a poison, honestly.
Yeah.
We can only go one direction.
You have to build what you want.
Yeah. And
if you're building for the past, you're at best case scenario, you're also going to be including the fallacies of the past.
Yeah. If
the 1950s were your golden time, well, guess what? You're sticking in segregation too. Mm-hmm. You're erasing you're erasing a chunk of American history because they're a minority. It's horrible.
Yeah. But having, talking about like peeking through doors, and for sure we'll encounter some. Hopefully, we will encounter some in the future of this project. Who have their own equally as valid reasons for believing that Trump will be the person to save the country.
Yeah.
Right? Are you going to be able to peek through that door? Are you going to be able to see what they see?
It's hard. I mean, that's part of the reason why this project was aborted 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that I'll have a little bit more fortitude this time.
Yeah, fair enough.
And hopefully I can just view the first Trump term as training.
Yeah.
So, now's the time for me to rise. Take my own advice that I gave to AOC.
Yep.
It's not enough to shake your fist at the world. You got to do something, and I'm hoping that the Ascendant Project is doing something positive. And that's really what I want. There's so much negativity going on. I want, especially in politics, I want this to be a positive thing in politics, which is so rare.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find a polished stone here.
Well, I think it's a great idea, and quite honestly, when I first started my growth into the political sphere, so to speak, I was for me it really kind of started about midway through college. Mm-hmm. Going through, and which is maybe odd because I had two parents who worked in the federal government, one at a fairly high level.
Yeah.
But politics was not really something that I paid attention to at all.
Yeah.
Not until probably after 9/11 is really what did it. and the Patriot Act and all the debate about limitations of powers and what that meant. But I remember from that time, I listened to C-SPAN like incessantly, but I remember from that time people being interviewed on C-SPAN, Congress people being interviewed, talking about how they stopped doing the luncheon. Like Congress used to have, they would all go and sit together at lunch and left and right mixing together,
exactly,
talking to one another and it didn't necessarily all lead to the best policies, but at least
it gave them an environment to learn their stories, which allowed them to compromise.
Yeah. Or at the very least, appreciate the other side.
Yeah, completely, 100%.
Yeah. So, well,
give them a better chance to be, Roadrunner and Coyote, punching in and out at the end of the day, and like the old cartoon. Or was that the dog? Not Roadrunner. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so like taking us out, like real quick, like what do you, from this conversation, you mentioned like a couple pieces that you might consider writing. Like what can we look forward to?
I haven't figured that quite out yet, but I definitely need to come up with something. But it's your turn anyway. So
it is my turn. To be honest, like I think I have a good sense of what direction, what I'd like to write about first. Okay. I've been thinking about what I would write about, and I'm now actually, I think I'm going to go a totally different direction.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool.
It was good talking to you, man.
Yeah, it was good talking to you.
Yeah.
We should go for a beer sometime.
How about now?
How about now? All right.